Greetings world. We are Anon DK. The mark of the beast is a topic of concern for so many. We thought it important to make a video regarding it. Many people are deceived and confused about what the mark of the beast is. It is not a physical mark. Deception. It will not be what we expect, because we will fall into it and be deceived. We will not know unless we are awakened. Unless we are brought to realization. The truth is simple, it is easy, and that usually makes it all the harder to see. We are used to things being so complex, so involved, because the elite make everything this way, to confuse and fear and intimidate. So let us look at this moment. The Bible very clearly states who the beast is. It is the Vatican, calling itself the synagogue of Satan and being robed in purple and red. The beast is clear. There is no doubt. So the beast system, it would have to do with the beast. The Vatican. We know the Vatican plans to bring about the one world government, the new world order. And in that government, which will happen in time to come, there will be a forced one religion. This government system, it seems, is the beast system. There is much fear and deception around this topic. In this system, the beast system, the one world order that the Vatican has worked hard and endlessly to bring about. We have exposed much on the beast topic already. Please see our movie The Lead for more on that. The beast system is from the beast, and the Vatican wants a one world rule. That is the system. We are in that system already, and much of the world is under control of the Vatican through the elite families and bankers. So with that, what would a mark be that would come from the Vatican and through the New World Order, that can take away our salvation? Only one thing can take away our salvation, and that is not believing and rejecting the salvation. The ones who control and run the Vatican worship Lucifer. They do all they can to force us to worship him as well. They perform false flags and wars, which are known to them as blood ritual sacrifices, human sacrifices, to Lucifer, and they blast it across the world for us to watch over and over and over. They make movies about their satanic rituals, but because they do not spell it out for us, we allow ourselves to be deceived, and we watch them and spend money on them, and waste our time on Luciferian rituals. We support that. And that is simply one example. This is in every aspect of our lives. The elite worship Lucifer and want to destroy us. They want to kill us, not keep us around as pets. And after the New World Order takes place and they crown the Antichrist in the third temple in Jerusalem, all which has to take place after economies collapse, and wars are so devastating, the world cries out for peace. When things get so bad, we beg for the New World Order, in the name of false peace. After the peace, the system will be put in place. The system of the beast, the global government, the one world currency, which will likely be implemented with an implanted RFID chip. At any rate, it would be electronic banking system, as currency would be gone. We do not know the details of how it will be living under the one world order, but for many of us it will not get that far. During this one government, this community, as they like to say, this totalitarian rule, people will be so crippled, sick, tired of death, hungry, poor. They will do whatever the one who offers peace will tell them. The new ruler, the Antichrist, will leave us the choices. Do this or die. Do that or die. This will be the new world order, and if we go along with it, we will receive the mark. By rejecting our salvation, the mark of the beast is the forced worship on the day of Lucifer, the Sun Sunday, a forced worship. Under this one world government, when the laws are not followed, the punishment will be severe. They must have order and control. They will enforce the one religion on all, by forcing all to worship on Sunday, which is already recognized as the day of worship. They will of course make the new religion seem wonderful, tolerant, new and peaceful of course. They will make us want it. That is deception. And the one world religion is heresy. But that is what they do. We always ask for it. Always. And those who reject it will be killed for doing so. Perhaps sent to a camp first. But they will not hesitate to keep order and control in the system. The beast, the Vatican, in the system of the New World Order under rule of the Antichrist, will put in place a mark, one we must accept or suffer for. Under the New World Order we will have an electronic and easily controllable currency, much like we have today, although we still print money for the illusion and deception that we are not controlled economically yet. This is all too easy to control already, and it seems pointless for the elite to waste time and money implanting everyone on Earth with a forced chip when they already have them. And it will affect everyone. The thing that can affect everyone worldwide regardless is a law. A mark of the system, the Sunday law, will be passed after the one world government is in place, and the one religion will either be accepted or rejected. The mark, the law, which will be put in place is worshipping Lucifer by force. On Sunday, the Creator rested on the Sabbath, and when he was on earth as Jesus, he said it again, reminding us once again to keep the day holy, set aside our date night with him, so to speak, having a God before the Creator, and publicly worshipping Lucifer on a day which is not special to God. The one day he rested and enjoyed his work was the Sabbath, Saturday, the day he took delight in us, and the day he wants us to keep delight in him, to remember him on that same day, like an anniversary. He never told us to celebrate his birth, nor his death, his human existence, but to celebrate him when he celebrates us. Everything we have ever been commanded by God in the Bible has been simple and easy to follow, and time again we have fallen short, being deceived the first trick that comes along. We are still the children of Israel wandering in the desert, being told one day not to worship the idols, the next day worshipping the idols. Nothing has changed, and we will have one last chance to change, or forever be damned. We must not give in to the control of fear. The elite have long infected the church and those who teach from them. Be careful what sources you use and the organizations you are involved in. Where did the leader go to school? Who holds the money for the church now? All too often it is a Jesuit in the end, and because the church was being successful, it was bought out by the Jesuit elite and is controlled and used to deceive. The church has been infected like school and government, and everything the elite have touched. Can they force implants? Yes, they already do and have done that on people for years. It is scary. It creates fear, and it is easy to exploit it. However, we must remember they invert and twist everything. They blind us. They redefine words. They poison our air. They control our technology. We are all recorded and logged from the day we are born. We are given a number which is then transferred to London, where it is copied into our file. Then it is transferred also to the Vatican, where our personal info is also kept. We must use this number to verify ourselves, and it allows us access to everything we need to live. Our bank, our paycheck, our groceries, Everything is corrupted and easily controlled with a mark. The law passed. It is hard to take a step back, get away from the fear and see a perhaps simple question. If the mark and the system are from the beast and we know the beast is the Vatican, then the mark and the system of the beast are easy to see. Fear controls us, and that is what we must learn to control before the New World Order takes place. We must prevent it if we can, and with awareness, with light in the darkness. The corrupt flee. Every time we expose them, their plans are pushed back a bit further. Do not live in fear as the elite want us to. The mark is not physical. Just as salvation gives those who accept it the seal, it is not a physical mark but a spiritual one. Salvation cannot be taken away and cannot be forced on anyone. We have free will as far as our eternal souls are concerned. No one can force one way or another. Also remember to question everything. We know the infection runs deep. Leaders of huge churches and those who end up on TV are bought and paid for by the Jesuits, just as the mainstream media in Hollywood are. Anyone who has success is bought out by the beast, the Jesuit elite. The mainstream have thought about this as well. They are also scripted and bought out. They are there to lie and deceive us and create fear. The elite live off of fear. Ask yourself, take a step back and do not let your personal emotions cloud this. Who is telling you the mark of the beast is an RFID chip and why? We already know they can and do put RFID material in chips called smart dust and chemtrails that spray on you daily. You inhale RFID and have it in your system. You are already infected by that and all technology in the beast system, and it will be used more and more and may well be implemented physically at some point. But this creates much fear and panic, does it not? Does it not cloud your mind and take up much of your time in worry and suffering and concern? And if it was implemented, a forced RFID chip, or a tattoo like the concentration camps had, does the build-up fear not serve a purpose? To make those who believe enemies of those who would enforce it, which would be the government. An easy roundup would take care of that. And they are prepared for it. They plan to implement it, and it can and likely would be used to enforce the mark of the beast. When the mark of the beast is put in place, most governments can easily implement sanctions to any dissenters of state laws with the simple act of not issuing new post or credit card. We are already under total economic control. Many countries now use a universal ID card that is used for just about everything, including visiting the doctor, traveling. Just like every other deception, we must be wiser and look deeper. Further, one thing we can all know for certain, that since our birth we have been told lies and deception. Let us go to the source to find what the mark is and who the beast. We have discussed the Vatican being the beast before. When we look we shall see. We are not to live in fear but to be at peace and enjoy positive frequencies. We are controlled by the elite who worship Lucifer and thrive on negative frequency. Everything they do is to create it. There are many difficult things we find out and learn as we research and study. We must be able to accept whatever the truth is if it goes with what we naturally thought to be true. And even if it goes against everything we thought to be true. We have all been deceived on many levels and in many ways. When we first woke and realized the full extent of the deception and illusion we live in and call life, it was difficult indeed. It is very hard to be awake in a world so consumed with darkness, death, greed, fear, and the more you wake the more desperate you are to find some hope that humanity still exists. Knowing how simple and easy it is to live in peace the more we awaken, and it is impossible to achieve in this world. But we must trudge forth. We must stay awake and continue in the pain of reality. We must uncover the truth and shatter our illusions regardless the pain. Because we know we are more than we have been allowed to be. This slavery must end, the truth must be found. And so in the pursuit of truth, and after a few requests on this topic, we hope very much to ease the stress and fear this topic creates. And if nothing else, perhaps this will give you information that will help you continue your journey for truth. There is no need to fear. The truth sets us free from that. So let's take a look.
In the Bible, it says that if you get the mark of the beast, you lose your salvation. And this is pretty interesting that it would have to be a microchip, seeing as the people who suggest this also say once saved, always saved, which to my mind just does not square up at all. How, if we are once saved, always saved, that if we cause this little microchip to get in our hands, we lose our salvation? In the Bible, it says, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me, and I give unto them eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand. My Father which gave them me is greater than all, and no man is able to pluck them out of my Father's hand." That's from John 10 verses 27 to 29. Did you know that in the Old Testament, guys, keeping the commandments of God was bound for a sign between your eyes and also on your right hand? Did you know that? In Exodus 13, speaking about the Passover, it says this, Exodus 13, 9 and 16. "It shall be for a sign unto thee upon thine hands, and for a memorial between thine eyes, that the Lord's law may be in thy mouth. For with a strong hand hath the Lord brought thee out of Egypt. And it shall be for a token upon thine hands, and for frontlets between thine eyes, for by the strength of hands the Lord brought us forth out of Egypt." And again, it's also in Deuteronomy chapter 6. It says, "And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes." Deuteronomy 6 verses 6 to 8. And again in Deuteronomy 11:18 it says, "Therefore shall you lay up these my words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hands, that they may be as frontlets between your eyes." So get this, God's law is bound for a sign in your right hand or in your forehead. Doesn't that mean that the mark of the beast, which is in your right hand or your forehead, might be breaking one of the Ten Commandments? In the book of Ezekiel, the Jewish nation was in terrible apostasy, and you can read that in Ezekiel chapters 7 and 8. But there was a small group within Jerusalem which were sighing and crying for all the abominations, and God said that these people who keep my commandments and are not swept away into the idolatry of the rest of the church, these will have a mark upon their foreheads. Ezekiel chapter 9 verse 4, "And the Lord said unto him, Go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof." And in verse 6 it says that they should begin at my sanctuary, which is an important statement, because in 1 Peter 4:17 it also says that judgment must begin at the house of God. Okay. So if the mark of the beast is a sign in the right hand of the forehead, then it must be a violation of the Ten Commandments, not some little microchip. And if it's a microchip, who's the beast? What does the book of Revelation say? In Revelation chapter 14, verses 9 to 11, it says this, "And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels, and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up for ever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. So clearly, those who receive the mark of the beast, bad news for them. What does the next verse say? It says, "Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus." So let's get this straight. Those who do not get the mark of the beast keep the commandments of God and have the faith of Jesus. And those who receive the mark of the beast, well, they die. So obviously the mark of the beast must be the counterpart of not receiving a mark of the beast, and if not receiving a mark of the beast is keeping the law of God, then having a mark of the beast must be a violation of the Ten Commandments. Maybe that's why it says it's in your right hand or your forehead, just as it says in the Old Testament that keeping the commandments is for a sign in your right hand or your forehead. Surely the Lord God will do nothing but he revealeth his secrets unto his servants the prophets. Amos 3:7. So get this, prophecy is not a private interpretation. Interpretations belong to God. We have to study line upon line the whole Bible in order to understand the whole of Revelation. If we do not use the Bible to explain the prophecies, there's no light in us. And if we are God's servants, God will explain prophecies to us. 2 Peter 1 verse 20, Genesis 40 verse 8, Isaiah 8:20, Isaiah 28 verse 10, and Amos 3 verse 7. So firstly, who is the beast? Let's just have a brief history lesson on the prophecies of Daniel. In Daniel chapter 2, the king Nebuchadnezzar dreams of this image, and it represents the nations which will come after him. The head of gold represented Babylon. The breast and arms represented Medo-Persia. The belly and thighs represented Greece. The legs of iron represented Rome. And the 10 toes, which came at the end, represented the modern nations of Europe, and then the papacy came amongst them. But the papacy is not part of the 10 toes. The 10 toes were the Saxons, who became the English, the Franks, who became the French, the Alemanni, who became the Germans, the Visigoths, who became the Spanish, the Suevi, who became the Portuguese, the Lombards, who became the Italians, the Burgundians, who became the Swiss, and then there were 3 others known as the Heruli, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths. When we come to Daniel chapter 7, there's even more information given on the history of these nations. It says, 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion, and then the second like a bear, and then, lo, another like a leopard. And then the fourth one, behold the fourth beast, it doesn't really have a description, it just says it had great iron teeth. So remember that, they come out of the sea. The first is like a lion, second like a bear, third like a leopard, and fourth one has great iron teeth. These also represent the nations of the kingdoms of Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece and Rome. And remember that in the time Revelation was written, it was the kingdom of Rome which is ruling. Rain check. I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto what? A leopard, and his feet were as the feet of what? A bear, and his mouth was as the mouth of what? A lion. And the dragon gave him his power, his seat, and great authority. That's interesting here, that this beast here is like a leopard, his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth was as the mouth of a lion, almost exactly matching what Daniel says when he says that 4 great beasts came up from the sea. The first was like a lion, the second like a bear, and the third one like a leopard. Pretty interesting to me. This meant that the papacy, which is what it's talking about in Revelation 13, would have the worst and most vile characteristics of the 3 main preceding nations which came before it. Most similar to the leopard, which was Greece, the nation just before it. Then a little bit more similar also to Medo-Persia, the nation before that, the bear. And also a little bit similar to the nation even before that, Babylon, the lion. And it's interesting that in Revelation it says he has the mouth of a lion, because it was Nebuchadnezzar who first thought to speak blasphemous words. It was Nebuchadnezzar who made that giant statue 6 across and 60 high, 666, and caused all to worship before it, paralleling the mark of the beast. And because Nebuchadnezzar represents the lion in Daniel 7, or the kingdom of Babylon, the lion in Daniel 7, then that's why it says in Revelation 13 that he had the mouth, or the same attitude, as a lion. Now in Revelation 17, it gives the same description of the beast. Revelation 17:3 says, "He carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-coloured beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns." Notice it gives the same description as is found in Revelation 13. It says, having 7 heads and 10 horns. This is the one that rises up from the sea and is like a leopard, like a leopard, a bear, and a lion. So Revelation 17:3 says it's really a woman sitting upon a scarlet-coloured beast. In prophecy, what does a woman mean, and what does a beast mean? Well, let's go back to Daniel 7 again, where it speaks about the lion and the bear and the leopard. In Daniel chapter 7, it says 4 great beasts came up from the sea. When we come down to verse 17, it says, "These great beasts, which are 4 kings, which shall arise out of the earth." When we come to verse 23, it says, "Thus he said, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms." So clearly here, in prophecy, a beast is a kingdom. So when it says a woman is sitting upon a scarlet-coloured beast, it clearly means that something is going to join itself to a nation or a kingdom. And by the way, it does say that this kingdom will be diverse from all kingdoms. Why will it be diverse? Because it's sitting upon a woman. And what does a woman represent in prophecy? In Jeremiah 6 verse 2 it says, "I have likened the daughter of Zion to a comely and delicate woman." And again in 2 Corinthians 11 verse 2 it says, "I am jealous over you with godly jealousy, for I have espoused you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Christ." So the church of Christ is presented as Christ's bride to Jesus himself. And in prophecy, in Jeremiah, it says that I have likened the daughter of Zion to a comely and delicate woman. So there we have it. In prophecy, a woman is a church. That's why Revelation says that it was a woman sitting upon a scarlet-coloured beast. In other words, it was a church which joined a nation, which was the history of the Vatican. That's why Daniel says that he shall be utterly diverse from all nations, every other nation before or after it. The 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom, and which shall be diverse from all kingdoms. And get this, the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. I've already told you what those kings were. And another shall arise after them. This other one is called the papacy. He shall be diverse from the first. Why is he diverse? Because he's also a church. And he shall subdue 3 kings. This prophecy about subduing 3 kings is pretty important. Do you remember that there were those 3 other ones called the Heruli, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths? Well, they were pretty upfront about saying, "Mr. Vatican, you cannot become a church and state. We won't allow it. We are going to fight against you, and we are not going to have it." But in the books of history it says that the Vatican prevailed against them. The Heruli were the first ones to fall in 493 AD. The Vandals went a few years later in 534 AD, and the Ostrogoths, which put up with them till the last, were extinguished finally in 538 AD. And then it was in 538 AD that Vigilus ascended the papal chair under the military protection of Belisarius, and then established the system of the Vatican, a church and a state, together. And what is another prophecy about the Antichrist? It says that this beast here has 7 heads. What do the 7 heads mean? Revelation 17 verse 9 says, "Here is the mind that has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth." It is within the city of Rome, called the City on 7 Hills, that the entire area of Vatican State proper is now confined. Now Revelation 13, it gives even more detail. It says, "I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast." What does this mean? Well, the deadly wound points to the downfall of the papacy in 1798. Napoleon went in under the command of General Berthier during the French Revolution and captured the Pope and took him to France. And then the Pope was he ceased to be the ruler in Rome, and the entire system of church and state was completely broken. In terms of Catholicism, that's called a deadly wound. And the time difference between these two dates, 538 AD and 1798 AD, is exactly 1,260 years. Which means that 42 months is exactly 1,260 days. That's why the woman had to flee into a wilderness where she has a place prepared of God 1,260 days. And in prophecy, a day really represents a year. That's why in Ezekiel 4 verse 6, it says, "I have appointed thee each day for a year."
On March 12, 2000, Pope John Paul II admitted in a globally publicized mea culpa that the Vatican did in fact kill millions of people between the years 538 AD to 1798 AD. Now just do the math. 1798 minus 538 equals 1,260 years that Rome was allowed to make war with the saints. For teaching faith contrary to the teaching of the Church of Rome, history records the martyrdom of more than 100 million people.
But the Vatican was ruling for exactly 1,260 years, just as the prophecy said, between 538 AD, when the Ostrogoths went down, until 1798, when Napoleon was established. And then we also have this business of 666. 666. What can that mean? Well, in Revelation it says that it is the number of a man, and his number shall be 666. In Revelation, it talks about the mark, and the name of the beast, and the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast. For it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So in other words, the beast is led by a man. The man has a name. The name has a numerical value. The numerical value on the name is 666, meaning the Pope's name will add up to 666. What does the Catholic Church say that the name of the Pope is? The letters inscribed in the Pope's mitre are these: Vicarius Filii Dei, which is the Latin for Vicar of the Son of God. Catholics hold that the Church, which is a visible society, must have a visible head. Hence to the Bishop of Rome, as head of the Church, was given the title Vicar of Christ. That's from our Sunday Visitor, Catholic Weekly, Bureau of Information, Huntington Industrial, April 18th, 1915. So Vicarius Filii Dei, what does that add up to? This is Vicarius Filii Dei in Latin. When we add up the Roman numerals for filii, we come up with 53. When we add up the Roman numerals for Dei, we come up with 501. And so the Latin title, Vicarius Filii Dei, which translated means Vicar of the Son of God, adds up to 112 plus 53 plus 501, which does indeed total 666. This is the official title of the Pope. But it doesn't end there. We also have Ludovicus, which means Vicar of the Court. And in Latin, Ludovicus does add up to 666. 50 plus 5 plus 500 plus 0 plus 5 plus 1 plus 100 plus 5 and 0, 666. Dux Cleri, which means Captain of the Clergy. 500 plus 5 plus 10, and Cleri is 100, 50, 0, 0 and 1. So in other words, 515 plus 151 totals 666. Again, Rex Latinus Sacerdus, which means King of the Roman priests or King of the Latin priests. Rex comes to 10, Latinus comes to 56, and Sacerdus comes to 600, which totals 666. But it doesn't end there. The Vatican also calls itself Sancta Lux Dei, which means Holy Light of God. And Sancta Lux Dei does also add up to 666. And what does the Vatican say about its own mark? It says, of course, the Catholic Church claims that the change, Saturday Sabbath to Sunday, was her act, and the act is a mark of her ecclesiastical authority in religious things. H. F. Thomas, Chancellor of Cardinal Gibbons, November 11th, 1895. Sunday is our mark of authority. The Church is above the Bible, and this transference of Sabbath observance is proof of that fact. Catholic Record of London, Ontario, September 1st, 1923. So in other words, the mark of the beast is Sunday keeping. In your right hand or your forehead, a violation of the law of God. It is not a microchip, for no man will pluck them out of my Father's hands. In Revelation 12, when it describes the true church, it says in verse 17, "Here are they that keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ." The true church keeps the commandments of God. And because they keep the commandments of God, they have something called the testimony of Jesus Christ. What is the testimony of Jesus Christ? In Revelation 19 verse 10 it says, "The testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy." So in other words, those who keep the commandments of God will have the spirit of prophecy. Or in other words, those who obey the Sabbath commandments will have the gift of understanding prophecy.
Who is in charge, my friends? Who is in charge? And how can we know if a ministry, if a church is being led by God? Jesus says, not by man's approval, but by their fruit. You shall what? Know them, my friends. So now question, which entity will Christ use primarily to finish the work? It is not the regular lines, my friends. It is what, my friends? It is not the regular lines. Look here, beloved. How could this be the entity? How could this be the entity? June 2002, in our senior Sabbath school lesson quarterly, on page 85 and page 86, there was a startling statement where the worldwide church stated that 666 in Revelation chapter 13, verse 18 specifically, it does not connect, it has nothing to do with the papacy. These could not be the angels flying in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel, when the principal controversial issue in these last days is the mark of the beast crisis. It is over worship. And in our Sabbath school lesson guide, we are saying we don't believe that 666 has anything to do with the papacy. That is heresy, my friends. Watch this. This is Neil Wilson, the former General Conference president, the elder, since 1980 to 1990. And in this sworn statement before the court, he stated, listen carefully, he stated that in our past history, Seventh-day Adventists took an anti-popery stance. But as far as he's concerned and the church is concerned, we no longer have an anti-popery stance. So friends, if we're not against popery and the principles of popery, what's the opposite? We are united with the papacy, my friends. How could you be in bed with the papacy and still preach the mark of the beast? But listen, we have some of our prominent so-called conservative pastors who do preach the mark of the beast, but it's only in theory, not in practice. That's why Jesus says, yes, do as they do, but not do as they say, but not as they do. That was Neil Wilson. Now, friends, what if I told you? What if I told you that Elder Neil Wilson's son, who is the present General Conference President, Elder Ted Wilson, states that we no longer believe that the mark of the beast is Sunday worship? Would you believe me? Would you believe me, my friends? Or would you think I'm making this thing up? Huh, friends? Hear me carefully. This was August 9th, 2000, come on, follow me, 2014. He sat, Elder Wilson sat on a live panel discussion with Mark Finley, Rafferty, and a few others, and Don McIntosh. And listen, they were going through the three angels' messages of Revelation chapter 14 from verse 6 through verse 12. They were doing it verse by verse. And when they got to verse 9, addressing what the mark of the beast is, Don asked the president, Mr. President, tell the world, what is the mark of the beast? And the president said, listen, the mark of the beast is worshiping on any other day of the week except Sabbath. Listen what it says.
And an attempt to actually change God's Ten Commandments so that the day of worship becomes one other than the seventh-day Sabbath. And in fact, the mark of the beast would be the worship of God on any other day than that particular day, because that is a sign of God's authority. In fact, let's contrast the mark of the beast with the seal of God, because the seal of God for God's people in the last days will be their adherence, their love of Him, and their observance of the day which He has ordained and made sacred, the seventh-day Sabbath. So you are sealed with a special connection with Him when you keep that day. Anyone keeping a day other than that ultimately will be keeping the sign or the mark of the authority of the beast, which has changed the day of worship to another day.
Another day? Listen, let's go back over that transcript now. He says, quote, and in fact, the mark of the beast would be the worship of God on what? On any other day than that particular day, because that is a sign of God or God's authority. In fact, let's contrast the mark of the beast with the seal of God, because the seal of God for God's people in the last days will be their adherence, their love of Him, and their observance of the day which He has ordained and made sacred, the seventh-day Sabbath. Listen now. So you are sealed with a special connection with Him when you keep that day. Anyone keeping a day other than that ultimately will be keeping the sign or the mark of the authority of the beast, which has changed the day of worship to another day. That's heresy, my friends. Respectfully, I say that is error. Hold on. What if I reject the Sabbath and I call Monday my Sabbath? Is Monday the mark of the beast? Who is the beast? The papacy. Did the papacy enforce just any day to be the Lord's day? What if I keep Wednesday as my worship day, my rest? Do I have the mark of the beast? Why is it that our presidents, plural, and this present president is afraid to publicly confess the present truth and to call sin by its right name? How could these men then be the angels of Revelation chapter 14? He's not dead yet, so guess what? There's still hope. Listen, and that's why we can see a trace of events. He said during his inauguration address, let's give the whole world great controversy. And what did they publish and pass out? The Great Hope. And they extracted all the chapters that address the issue of the papacy, the issue of liberty of conscience, the reformers. What is going on, my friends? Can we not see the two groups just before the mark of the beast crisis? These men are afraid to confess truth publicly.
We now know the beast is the Vatican. Sunday is the mark of authority the Roman Catholic Church put above the Bible. This transference of Sabbath observance is proof of that fact. Thomas, Chancellor of Cardinal Gibbon, stated, "One of the greatest deceptions of all time is one day we should keep holy. The Bible is very clear on this matter. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy." Exodus chapter 20 verse 8. This commandment was never an option, neither was it acceptable to change this law, just as the Catholic Church forcibly dictated what would be in the published Bible and what would not. All the disciples and all the early churches kept the true Sabbath, Saturday. This is the deception. Sunday is the first day of the week and Saturday is the seventh. Our world has been conducted by the elite. Everything we have been told is a lie. Sabbath was instituted in Rome in 321 AD by Roman Emperor Constantine time. His fake conversion to Christianity as a Jesuit, in order to gain power, merged the Christians with the paganism of the Roman Catholic Church, moving the Sabbath to the pagan sun worship day. This political move brought unity throughout Rome, the global government of its time. America historically has been distrustful of the papacy and its plan for world domination. However, the Reagan administration changed this. These two powers have open diplomatic relations. U.S. presidents now visit the Vatican. They are all bought and paid for by the Jesuit elite. George W. Bush even held a birthday party for Pope Benedict XVI at the White House. Now it is a common occurrence, it seems, to see politicians meeting openly with the vicar, aka Antichrist. The views of Protestants, those who believed it was by faith alone one was given salvation, no need for rulers, and no religion. Through the years of deception and infiltration, the Protestants, those who protested, have changed. The Vatican is not acknowledged for what it is, the synagogue of Satan. We allow the lies and deception to continue. Illegitimate Sunday, which is the Vatican's mark, the mark of the beast, the mark which will deceive many. The beast will make the world worship it and then take the mark. The beast, the Vatican, has already infected the world. We already know of their plans and deceptions to form the one world government, one world religion, and one world ruler, crowned in Jerusalem, at the Third Temple, which is on Google Maps now. The Vatican and Israel have everything made for it and are currently training priests according to the multitude of prophecies about this. Much is happening and much more is to come. We must not be deceived and follow the beast. Eventually, as the prophecy states, all will end up instituting the Sunday law and putting those who keep the holy Sabbath to death. A mark in our minds, our foreheads, our thoughts, our worship, and a mark on our hands, actions. People have two choices: to keep pagan Sundays or the Sabbath as commanded. We see how many have already been deceived and implemented this Sunday law, enforcing the mark of papal authority, worshipping the beast. Now this time frame we are discussing is indeed to come. We can see this as we creep ever slowly towards the New World Order, the Sunday worship of Lucifer. Since everyone has been conditioned by the satanic-run Vatican to already think and practice Sunday gathering as the day of worship, it will not be hard to enforce this as a global law, which it will be. The Vatican has given us all so many lies, dictating our science, our history, telling us what to believe, think, feel. It will be easy to be deceived, and many already are. But now we know, and are not deceived. The Vatican is run by Luciferian Jesuits, those we call the elite, those we seek to destroy, those we fight to expose, those we watch, those we will continue to expose and warn you of. They use the banking families who we have exposed to you, the banking elite who are Jesuit Luciferians, come control and enslave us using the weapon of gold, the illusion that a stone is worth more than your life. They mock us, they hate us, they control the media, they control education, they control food, they control water and air, but they cannot and do not control you unless you allow it. You have free will. Use it freely. Fear less. No one can take your salvation from you. They can only take your life in this world, but it's a world of shit anyways. Live life. Be at peace. Stop feeding the fear. Find truth. Expose it.